betrayed the country by trying to improve the immigration system. Wow. Other voters slammed Rubio for being too harsh, demanding to know why he no longer supports a path to citizenship for undocumented people who have made a life in the United States. As he has done in the past, Rubio disavowed his past support for comprehensive immigration reform, claiming that such an effort is now impossible. Quote, over the last 5 years, we've had 2 executive orders that legalize people and 0 enforcement, he said, adding that there are 2 million more undocumented people in the country than there were in 2010, and the number continues to grow. In fact, the number of undocumented people in the U.S. has fallen over the last decade, recently dipping below the often cited 11 million figure. More Mexicans are leaving the U.S. than arriving. And despite Rubio's claim of 0 enforcement under President Obama, his presidency has seen record deportations, the expansion of private immigration jails, and controversial raids targeting Central American asylum seekers. President Obama has also overseen a massive increase in Border Patrol agents and border militarization efforts. That is the truth and a fact. While Rubio's hardline stance pleased many in the room who greeted his promise with cheers, one man stood up and confronted him. Quote, I hire an illegal immigrant named Fernando, he said. He's been with me for several years. He has a master key to all the apartments I manage. He's never raped anybody. He's never stolen anything. How about a path for the Fernandos to legitimize them? Rubio responded, I sympathize with the story you told, but I also sympathize with the American people who have to bear the burden of people coming into this country illegally. He then insisted that for every Fernando, there's a story that would outrage you, giving the example of Cubans who abuse the wet foot, dry foot refugee benefits program, which drew cries of outrage from the audience. In the end, he answered that we'll figure something out for hardworking, longtime residents like Fernando, but not until illegal immigration is under control. Boy, there's a lot to return to here. Woo. After the town hall, other residents told this reporter that despite this doesn't make sense. They told that they still viewed Rubio as weak on the issue. Okay, despite what he said, apparently, or despite the whatever. They still viewed Rubio as weak on the issue despite his promises of deportations and border buildups. He may say all the right things, but when you check his record, he's an opportunist, and he does what the party wants, Merola said. And when he was in the Florida legislature, he supported free tuition for illegal immigrants. Why should I believe him now? Merola added that he can't vote Rubio because of this. Immigration affects all aspects of our lives, he said. It affects our debt because we're spending billions on illegal immigrants. It affects legal immigrants and citizens who are not finding jobs. It affects our health care costs because we're giving them free health care. Wow. I never knew that. Though immigrants in New Hampshire contribute tens of millions of dollars in taxes each year and present a far smaller burden on programs like food stamps than native-born residents, many voters share Merola's fears and concerns. Laconia is one of 4 New Hampshire cities participating in a multi-year project to make the state more welcoming to immigrants. Kate Bruchakova and Susan Laverek of the New Hampshire Partners for Public Health, who works with immigrants in Laconia, putting some chapstick on, told Thinks Progress they're worried anti-immigrant rhetoric from Rubio and other Republican candidates could pose a serious setback. With all the things people hear on the news, it's not easy to make people appreciate the newcomers in the area. We really have our work cut out for us. We have to help people get to know each other so they don't see each other as so different. Bruchakova, a Slovakian native who is now a U.S. citizen, describes herself as Laconia's walking welcome center for new immigrants. She teaches them how to navigate the confusing bureaucracies of the local and federal government. She holds cooking classes, language exchanges, and soccer games to help those born in New Hampshire and those born abroad get to know each other. They're also recruiting new citizens to serve on local city councils and other boards to feel more invested in their communities. In the past, when someone new would migrate here, especially a person of color, they were a target, Laverek says. But with the work we're doing, helping people tell each other their stories, I really think it's helping. As in the rest of the state, the vast majority of Laconia residents are white, but influxes of immigrants and refugees over the last few decades from China, Bhutan, Jamaica, South Africa, and various Latin American countries have diversified the once homogeneous community. Though some immigrants work in the local hospital and in manufacturing plants, most work in the hospitality and tourism sectors, jobs that are seasonal and barely pay above minimum wage. The wages are not attractive for local people, but they are attractive for the new immigrants, Buchakova said. She added that she does see some hiring discrimination against immigrants, citing the case of an Iraqi refugee with 2 master's degrees who struggled to find work and eventually left the state. He's not a drain to society, but he was still getting mistreated just because he has an Arabic name. Meanwhile, the population of age 65 and above is going to double in the next decade, and many of the young people leave for college and don't come back. So who is going to be our labor force? We think immigrants are vital to the social and economic fabric of our community. So hopefully, before they go to vote next week, enough New Hampshire residents will do their homework and understand the benefits of immigration. Wow. Okay, so this was more along the lines of what I was trying to get at. So we were talking, if you remember, way back a few minutes ago, about how complex an issue immigration is, and how some people, in particular a certain party, but they will remain nameless here, but some people, this person in particular, are intentionally trying to dumb down and distort the topic for political purposes. There is no educational purpose being served by what this senator was saying here. And as you can see from the reaction of some of the people in the audience, very few of them took him to task for that. And some of them thought that he was not lying hard enough, apparently. He was not making enough crazy stuff up. So, first thing, quote, Marco Rubio, first thing we must do is make sure ISIS never gets into the United States using our immigration system. Okay, so how would you do that, I wonder? Is that a token nod in the direction of Trump's let's put a moratorium on people, Islamic faith, from coming into the United States, from any more Muslims coming into the country? That sounds like what he's saying there. He's trying to, like, let's take something that people are scared of, ISIS, and conflate it with the immigration system. There is absolutely nothing to indicate that ISIS would be trying to get into the United States using our immigration system. They could come here on any number of tourist visas. They could, I mean, the easiest thing for them to do is come here as tourists and then simply overstay their visa. There you have it. That's how you get into the United States. You get a tourist visa, assuming that they could get one. You come to the United States, and then you just stay. Then you're here. So what he seems to be doing here is sort of kind of pointing at but not saying Syrian refugees and other refugees should not be allowed in here because we should be afraid that ISIS is going to get in here. So that's, he's oh, I don't even know. I'm trying to avoid terms like lying, exaggerating, making stuff up, that kind of thing, because those are pretty strong terms, but I can't think of any other way to describe what he's doing with that other than he's just making stuff up and then trying to scare you with it. It's ridiculous. He would hire 20,000 new Border Patrol agents. What would they do? We already have tons of Border Patrol agents. They would just add to the bureaucracy, the waste and expense, and create problems, and they would do no good. Finish 700 miles of fences and walls? What? what is that about? Strip federal funding from sanctuary cities. I mean, this is just all ridiculous, extreme, ridiculous stuff. Family reunification. Oh, we can't have that. The system based solely on work skills. So I travel to another country. I fall in love. I get married. Yeah, sorry. Your partner, whoever he or she may be, just doesn't have the right kind of work skills. So too bad. You want to be together, you have to move to that country. Otherwise, marry an American. I mean, this stuff is ridiculous. This ignores so much about what's wrong with the immigration system, and just it's like a list of ways of making the current broken and bad system worse. Okay, you take what's wrong with our system and then you exaggerate all the bad points. That's what his recipe sounds like here. It's crazy. It's absolutely ridiculous. We've had 2 executive orders that legalize people. No, we don't. We have 2 executive orders that have allowed people to stay here without fear of deportation, pending comprehensive immigration reform. It legalizes them only to the extent that they're not going. We are agreeing not to deport them during this period. That's it. They're not legalized. Zero enforcement. That's already very well shot down by the article here. And the numbers continue to grow. No, that's absolutely just a lie. That's complete. He's lying. He's either stupid and doesn't know, or he's just lying. And I'm going to guess that he's just lying. And then further down, I sympathize with the American people who have to bear the burden of people coming into this country illegally. Okay, what, I wonder, is the burden of people coming into this country illegally? I'm waiting. I don't hear anybody speaking up. I can't think of anything. I can't think of a burden. I mean, further down we have this guy who talks about we spend billions on illegal immigrants. Well, most of the money we're spending on illegal immigrants is with this ridiculous enforcement stuff. If the government were to just say, you know what, just leave them alone. Not going to do anything about it. We're just going to not do anything at all. We'd save so much money. Most of the money we spend on undocumented persons or illegal immigrants, as this person is talking about here, is based around enforcement efforts. It's trying to track them down, trying to lock them up, trying to send them away. We spend so much money on doing that, on hiring drone operators and buying equipment and night vision goggles and jeeps and putting people around the fences, and that's where all these billions are going to. So yeah, immigration affects that aspect of our life. We're spending billions on immigrants, but it's billions being thrown away for no good reason. It affects legal immigrants and citizens who are not finding jobs. And we already talked about that. Sort of. Yes and no, but not all that much. It affects healthcare costs because we're giving them free healthcare. Where? Who's getting free healthcare? I would like some free healthcare. I don't get free healthcare. My healthcare is so expensive, I don't even get healthcare most of the time. I just, grin and bear it if I get sick and hope that I get better and hope that it's not serious because I can't afford it. I don't know anybody who gets free healthcare. There are charitable organizations that offer healthcare, but those are not being paid for by taxpayers. Those are privately funded enterprises. So, no. It's not. This person is completely wrong about everything that he says in every possible way, except he was sort of backwardly right about the fact that we're spending billions on immigrants, but he didn't understand in what way. So it's interesting to see that here we have a candidate who is pretty much going out of his way to lie. I'm going to go ahead and use the L word. He's lying about immigrants and immigration, and he's misleading about some things. And yet his audience was largely unimpressed by this because they believe even more outrageous lies and have been misled to an even greater degree than what he's trying to do. And that's really, really amazing. Okay, let's move on to something else. I'm just I'm flabbergasted by that. And there are a lot of things that I don't read. For example, I just can't bring myself to read stuff like this. Here's a headline: at least 95,000 illegal immigrant children flood U.S. schools. So you already know where they're going with that, and it just makes me too angry to even look at that sort of thing. Okay. Oh, what else do we have here? We're actually approaching the end of the show. We got a few more minutes here, but I wanted to touch base and tell you that you're listening to WRFU 104.5 FM. This is CU Immigration on WRFU 104.5 FM, and also CU Immigration on UPTV. And so it depends on how you're accessing this. If you're listening over the radio, I don't know what it sounds like, but hopefully it sounds okay. Well, I could... No, I won't even bother with it. Anyway, if you're listening over the radio, you might want to know that. And if you're watching TV, you probably do know that. If you're watching it on YouTube, you almost definitely know that. But anyway. So you would be excused for thinking that the U.S. was a pretty inhospitable place for immigrants. And you would be right in many ways. But perhaps you have not been reading the news, and you haven't been paying attention to what's going on in Europe lately. So let me briefly bring you up to date on that. This article is from Christian Science Monitor. It's entitled "Anti-Islam Movement Stages Anti-Immigration Protests Across Europe." Sounds relatively mild when they write it that way. So, Germany's anti-Islam Pegida movement staged rallies in several cities across Europe on Saturday to protest against the arrival of hundreds of thousands of migrants from the Middle East and Africa. The movement, whose name stands for Patriotic Europeans Against the Islamization of the West, originated in the eastern German city of Dresden in 2014, with supporters seizing on a surge in asylum seekers to warn that Germany risks being overrun by Muslims. Overrun by Muslims. And here we're being overrun by who knows what. I mean, God, these people are really extreme. After almost fizzling out early last year, the movement has regained momentum amid deepening public unease over whether Germany can cope with the 1.1 million migrants who arrived in the country during 2015. The alleged involvement of migrants in assaults on women in Cologne on New Year's Eve has also spurred Pegida, which says it is proof that German Chancellor Angela Merkel's welcoming stance to refugees is flawed. Quote, "We must succeed in guarding and controlling Europe's external borders as well as its internal borders once again." Pegida member Siegfried Dabritz told a crowd on the banks of the river Elbe who chanted, "Merkel must go." Police in Dresden declined to estimate the number of protesters. German media put the number at up to 8,000, well below the 15,000 originally expected by police. Hundreds of counter-demonstrators also marched through Dresden under the motto, "Solidarity instead of exclusion," holding up placards saying, "No place for Nazis." Far-right groups see Europe's refugee crisis as an opportunity to broadcast their anti-immigrant message. There were 208 rallies in Germany in the last quarter of 2015, up from 95 a year earlier. Ooh, that's a lot. Protests also took place on Saturday in other cities, including Amsterdam, Prague, and the English city of Birmingham. In Calais, in northern France, more than a dozen people were arrested during a protest that was attended by more than 100 people despite being banned. Thousands of migrants fleeing war and poverty in Africa and the Middle East camp out in Calais, hoping for a chance to make the short trip across the English Channel to Britain. In Prague, an estimated 2,200 people, including both supporters and opponents of Pegida, held a series of rival demonstrations around the Czech capital. Police had to intervene in one march when supporters of the migrants came under attack from around 20 people who threw bottles and stones. Later, around 20 masked assailants threw Molotov cocktails during an attack on a center that collects donations for refugees, forcing the evacuation of the building and injuring one person who was hit by glass. In Warsaw, hundreds of people waved Polish flags and chanted, "England and France are in tears. That's how tolerance ends." We're demonstrating against the Islamization of Europe. We're demonstrating against immigration, against an invasion, Robert Winicki, leader of Poland's far-right Ruch Narodowy national movement, told demonstrators. The Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, and Poland have together taken a tough stance on migration and have largely opposed to taking in significant numbers of refugees. So the interesting part of this, where was it? I thought this was, it is kind of hidden in here, but this line stuck out to me in particular. Far-right groups see Europe's refugee crisis as an opportunity to broadcast their anti-immigrant message. That's it right there. If you really want to understand what's going on in immigration in general, a lot of people in positions of power are utilizing the problems of refugees and the increase in immigrants, in economic immigrants who are fleeing difficult situations at home, to manipulate people into supporting their overall position. Even in ways that don't have anything to do with immigration. That's what Trump is doing. That's what Rubio is doing. That's what a lot of these people are doing, is saying, vote for me and I'll save you from those people. And if it weren't such a convenient tool for getting people riled up and I don't know. It seems to be just a really great way, in general, of confusing people and making them angry about something that isn't actually happening. Just because people are coming to your country, that doesn't mean they're changing. They're not invading your country. They're not seeking to overturn the established norms of your country. They're coming there because they like what's there. You don't go to another country because you want it to be like the country you came from. If you like the country you came from, you stay home. So you go somewhere else because you say, hey, over there, I like the way things are over there. And I want to be a part of that. So I'm going to go there and be a part of that. And that's not to say that immigrants come and that they immediately try to shed their background and, wave little flags and say, oh, I am now, American or whatever. Not necessarily. They do bring religions and cultures and things along with them, and languages and foods and tastes and interests. And they're people. They're fully rounded people that come with all sorts of background and baggage. So yeah, things will change with the introduction of a large number of immigrants. But the basic point is that they're coming there because they like what they see there. And they think there's something there that they want to have a part of. What often happens is they come wanting a piece of this place, and the people there go, no, you can't do it. You're going to live in this ghetto. We're going to isolate you. We're not going to allow you to get good jobs or participate in the benefits of this place. We're going to lock you out of all that stuff. And so they form these little enclaves of difference, I guess you might say. And then those same people point and say, look, see, those people are different. They don't assimilate. They're not like us. We should exclude them further. And the problems become created. That is one of the big problems in France and Germany and a lot of these countries in Europe. That is what's been going on there. It's like, you can come here and you can live here, but you can never be a citizen. You can never, you can't participate. We'll give you low-wage jobs maybe, and that's about it. Well, naturally, those people all live together. They all hang out together. They all speak their language together, and they form these little enclaves of difference, as I've been calling it. And of course, they're not going to assimilate. How do you assimilate when you're not allowed to assimilate? If you can come to a place and just sort of, everybody says, howdy, neighbor, come on in, have a seat. Well, you are naturally going to assimilate in some ways and not in others. And the process of assimilation will be fairly rapid. Because you're being taken in and accepted and embraced. And so you say, hey, I like this. I like being with people who like me and in a place where I'm appreciated. But on the flip side of that, if you go to a place and you're excluded and ostracized and marginalized and othered, how are you going to react to that? You're going to stick with what you know, and you're going to, you're going to stay different. You're going to continue, your differences are going to remain kind of a basic part of you because that's all you have. You're not being given anything to replace them with. So I'm not glorifying assimilation. I'm not saying it's necessarily a worthwhile goal or something, but I am saying that if assimilation were what you desired of your immigrant population, the best way to achieve that is to welcome them. If assimilation is not what you desire from your immigrant population, the best way to achieve that is to ostracize them. So I think there's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy here amongst many people on the I guess I'll call it the other side of the immigration issue. Anyway, I've run out of time here. You have been listening to CU Immigration here on WRFU LP Urbana 104.5 FM. If you could hear me over the radio, I'm glad. If you couldn't, don't worry. You won't know. You won't know what I'm saying, so it doesn't matter.